All right, we're back with more NBA coverage, and in this one, I'll be covering Game 3 of the conference semifinals of this 2025-26 playoff campaign. Most of the games were actually pretty good this time around, I'm not going to lie. And you figure with the location now shifting from one to the other in regards to the road teams in these series in the lower seeds now, you knew in most cases that their fan bases would turn the hell up in those specific venues for the most part. And of course, 2 games into this time, you think that you know the team fairly well. Now it's just about trying to work around all of the different schemes that they've run in order to at least get a game in the series. And a couple of teams in particular were already there, while others, well, yeah, their prospects are not looking the best, no matter how hard they try. And we have to start, in that case, with the Knicks and the 76ers for the Game 3, played in Philadelphia, of course. They literally couldn't have started off the game much better than they did. You had Kelly Oubre Jr. get the fucking jump ball and race down the court for a layup off the tip in just the first 5 seconds of the game. And they just kept it rolling because it eventually turned into a 9-2 run. And then they also, as the quarter went along, they led by 20-8, nearly, around the halfway mark of the first quarter. So the offense was on full display for them already. And it was a similar kind of stretch in regards to how they ended up taking things over early in Game 2, keeping their shooting up, controlling the glass, which kind of just shocked me, and then also being proficient from outside. It all went according to plan for them. That was one thing that I noted about the Knicks as well in this game to start out, at least. I will say that Karl-Anthony Towns was mainly active on the glass, and then you didn't really get that much from anyone else, which typically I'm seeing multiple players, even guys like Jordan Clarkson or Jose Alvarado, when they're in off the bench, swarming in for offensive rebounds like there's no tomorrow. So the fact that the 76ers were able to get that kind of advantage on them, it did help that they had Embiid back, but it's like, I'm expecting a lot more from that Knicks defense. And then as well, there were just a number of crazy things going on. I mean, they were still sloppy with the ball to begin this game, and that led to back-to-back near half-court alley-oop plays from Maxey to Edgecombe. Just down the court with only Miles McBride back on defense. And at that point, he stood no choice. As good as Miles McBride can be, he's not getting up with fucking VJ Edgecombe in regards to athleticism. It's not going down like that. So you screwed yourselves over there. Now, I will say, also, they did start to turn it around, primarily with Jalen Brunson initiating most of the offense. When has that ever not been the case for this Knicks team, right? Fair enough. They started to, towards the tail end of this quarter, find some form of help, and they had to, because putting all of the onus on him all of the time is the exact reason why the Knicks have went through some of their previous failures in previous postseasons. And you have to be able to supplement that, because you know ultimately what you want Jalen Brunson in the game for down the stretch. And having all this Brunson ball shit happen early is going to exhaust the living hell out of them. They would find that help in the form of Landry Shamet, of all people, putting up a nice little tear towards the tail end of the first quarter, putting up 5 points in that time span, and punishing one of these late rotations, for example, for a deep 3 in the corner as well. When has that not happened to the 76ers either? But still, all of that being said, they were down by 4 points after the first quarter. And that's not even getting into the fact that, Paul George was balling. Like, he They had no answer for him. They decided to put Miles McBride on him numerous times. And in one such instance, he took him right at the top of the key, dribble to the left, to the right, breaking him down, going under his legs, just settles into a post position and puts up a shot near the mid-range, fading away, and it's cash. Takes him again on a different post positioning. This time he's near the block in the three-point line on the corner. Bruh, he eventually, after taking some time to diagnose the play, he just backs out of the post position, settles back into a different fading three-pointer, and greens it in fucking Miles McBride's face. And it was just him also being the absolute aggressor on offense when he was out there, which was only going to help the 76ers. It's like, damn, for just a glimpse of time, that's what we paid that man $53 million a year to do. He had 15 points in this first quarter. And that was very much spurring the effort for them in this game. Surely he keeps that performance up for the rest of it. We'll get into that portion of things later. Dear goodness. Even with my complaints about the apparent lack of intensity, from the Knicks, they still did have the advantage in second chance opportunities, and they continued to keep this game close as a result of it, with Landry Shamet continuing to start off the second quarter hot as well. And to have him come off the bench and do that with his shooting, especially, it kept the Knicks steady, at least, especially with trying to sit Jalen Brunson out at this particular time, saying as this start of the second quarter, you have to be able to generate offense elsewhere. And luckily for them, they got it done. Just keeping it simple and making sure to beat the 76ers all over the court. They were trying to dominate the paint, and by doing so, they forced enough pressure on several occasions in there to create open looks outside, including one for Jose Alvarado, because he is most certainly a shooter. The 76ers as well themselves during this quarter, man, they got incredibly fucking sloppy. Like, there was just some bullshit here, dude. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a fair point to address all of it before I get into more about the Knicks here. Dude, Joel Embiid and Karl-Anthony Towns are great offensive players. Do not get me wrong. They themselves, when it comes to this generation of centers that are phasing out of the more traditional style and entering into two-way forces or offensive juggernauts themselves, they've been at the helm of it for so many years. There's no question about that, especially when both of them are healthy, more so Embiid. They just can light it up all over the floor when they're at their best. And they truly do not have much of an answer for them when they are at their A game. As I stated before we even got into the series, they have their own history with each other as rivals in a way, because hey, you're doing the same thing I'm doing. I can't have that. No, I gotta be at the top of this particular thing. You can't share this fucking town, this throne with me. I'm gonna phase you out of that shit. I'm gonna beat the hell out of you every single time I face off against you, so we can then determine who's really at the top of this shit. Fair enough. And that competition didn't just go away for them in this series. They've been keeping it up when they've been on the court. At a time, both of these niggas are absolutely ridiculous. Both of them. And the shit has got to stop somewhere, because you'd want them to actually go out and compete and focus on basketball. No. Pretty much every possession these guys had when they were matching up against each other, It's them just trying to out-foul bait the other, grabbing the shit out of each other for no apparent reason whatsoever, and just making things incredibly difficult for both of their teams. Because in some cases, fouls were called here. And knowing that these are two of the better offensive players that each of these teams have, how the hell can you defend anything like this from going on? It just continued to seep into the second quarter. I mean, literally, you get a sequence where on one end, Joel Embiid just chucks up the stupidest fucking layup attempt imaginable. Trying to foul bait, trying to draw contact on Karl-Anthony Towns of all people, and he backs off him. The shot just clanks right off the fucking backboard in the ugliest fashion, and the Knicks are then able to just get out and run freely with virtually no resistance at all, leading to the aforementioned Jose Alvarado three-pointer after a different breakdown on the same possession. Then, to make matters even worse, you have Karl-Anthony Towns apparently get tangled up with Joel Embiid to the point where both of them fall down to the ground near the fucking column that attaches the hoop in the first place to the area near the camera crew and different photographers and everything like that. And they just fall into that. They challenge the play, and eventually they implicate that Karl-Anthony Towns is responsible for it. The nigga already has 3 fouls at this point of time, and you can imagine where he'd end up. Like, they literally, at that point, could not run him for the next 8 minutes of this quarter. And so I'm thinking in that time, hey, this is the opportunity for the 76ers to potentially take advantage, knowing how much of a weak link that Mitchell Robinson can be offensively, at least in their mind. It's all just based out of bullshit because we're not focusing on basketball when it comes to these two. And they have the skill sets, they have the talents to truly outdo the other in that realm and make things truly entertaining between those two. Instead, you're just trying to muck up the game because you cannot literally keep your hands to yourselves. This is ridiculous at this point, and it just has to stop. Now, that being said, they didn't necessarily miss a beat because in no short order, with a play ran out of bounds, you had Jalen Brunson lob this up to Mitchell Robinson with just a few seconds left on the shot clock, and he fucking demolished Joel Embiid on this alley-oop. Just a full leaping dunk, getting as vertical as he possibly can in the air and just jamming it down on his head. He literally got sat down by the end of it. The sheer force of Robinson hitting him exactly where it hurt forced him to topple over and sit his ass down on the floor. They've already shot this image around on several occasions. The Knicks already have created a number of different social media things in regard to that specific play right there. And it just extended the physicality that the Knicks would impose in the second quarter. They had themselves a 13-4 run during this time. In fact, a pair of 13-4 runs, which is pretty crazy to consider. They were just completely taking this game over now. And to be fair, you did not have one of your better players out there in Karl-Anthony Towns. It was everybody else getting it done, and it was also them keeping everybody else on the 76ers contained. Especially when it came to continuing this inefficiency trend for Joel Embiid. You also did not hear as much from Paul George in this quarter, although Kelly Oubre Jr. at the very least was trying to make a bit of an impact with his overall shooting performance in this game. So that helped matters out. Namely, Tyrese Maxey at this point. Yeah, he made every single shot that he took in this game up to this point, and he did have himself a few buckets in the second quarter. He had just 4 shots. And again, he made them all. But even with the 76ers shooting that well, it felt at every point like you want to involve Tyrese Maxey a little more. And yes, there were some double teams from the Knicks in this game. There's no denying that, because they want to get the ball out of his hands. You want more than likely anybody else to have to beat you compared to the speed threat himself. Understandably so. The opportunities were there to get him the ball, quite frankly. And I don't think the 76ers, looking at it overall, and especially with how the rest of the game went, did a great enough job of even attempting to involve him in this game, regardless of the double team. You get him out in the proper amount of space, he's quick enough. You've seen players split the double team on numerous occasions. You don't trust Tyrese Maxey to do that? That's a little interesting to me. It's a little interesting. And then from there, man, that just continued for the Knicks as they controlled the glass down the stretch and eventually extended the lead up to 11 just before the tail end of the quarter. Fortunately for the 76ers, Kelly Oubre Jr. was shooting so damn good that he got a little bit of a shooter's roll into the net for the three-pointer to end off the quarter entirely with a 60-52 deficit at halftime. Luckily, he was automatic. Because, man, if that was not the case, there would be numerous things to say elsewhere here. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did sparsely watch the third quarter, and I will say that the 76ers at least attempted to keep things more competitive here. It also helped them out that with everyone else on the Knicks performing to a high level, it's not necessarily like Jalen Brunson himself was the most efficient in this ball game either. Whether it be him missing an early shot or converting off of a turnover from him on a different three-pointer, they were very much alive in this game still. And they were able to trim the lead down gradually to give themselves a chance to win. Then, at the point of the third quarter I watched, they started to deploy Mitchell Robinson back in the lineup after Karl Anthony Towns came in for a short stretch of time. The Hack-a-Mitch special was on, especially with the 76ers continuing to do damage on the offensive end. The thing with the Hack-a-Mitch thing, of course, is that you are trying to buy yourself as many possessions as possible and as few effective ones for the Knicks in the same time span. Now, they didn't do it the entire time because, well, you need to make sure that you have enough of your core players in and not dealing with foul trouble to last in this game. Because the first two games have proven that with all of this talent, or lack thereof on occasion, you've kept things as close as you can and you've still come up short. The best thing you can do if you are Philadelphia is to retain a reasonable amount of fouls for all of your guys in this game and have them ready to go if there were a clutch time situation, so that you are at your absolute best and that there are no excuses left on the table. I still didn't stop him from trying. And although this was a 4-point ball game at numerous times in this quarter, it occasionally worked. But Mitchell Robinson shot some like 4 of 6 from the free throw line. So, you know, he's typically like a sub 50% shooter or somewhere around that range. and you're going far above that specific percentage, that particular point, like, that's fairly effective by his standards. And that would only come to benefit the Knicks, as they themselves would go on a 7-0 run to end the quarter, despite the best efforts of the 76ers to limit said possessions. It didn't matter, because Landry Shamet just continued to be a flamethrower from down in distance in those short minutes he logged during this game. And the fourth quarter continued to do what it does for the 76ers. On the one end, like, this specific play told me everything I need to know. Because you had Karl-Anthony Towns try to position himself in the post on one of these earlier possessions. He gets the switch with VJ Edgecombe now on him in the post. And at that point, I'm like, shit, Clarkson passes in the ball. I already know what's about to happen, even as time is winding down. Because if you're Paul George in that situation, you've got to help him out. He is not going to be able to last with that. And there's also a chance that Karl-Anthony Towns can draw a foul on him. Paul George goes back to help him and instantly rejects Jordan Clarkson's shooting prowess. The ball goes right back in his direction, and he launches up the easy three-pointer for himself to get on the board there and just extend this Knicks lead a little further. I will say that at times, the 76ers were able to go on very short runs. And I mean very short. Hell, Quentin Grimes himself would match that on a 5-0 spurt to force a timeout with 8 minutes and 53 seconds left. So this game was in reach just like the first few have been. Well, at least not necessarily the first two. I'm reaching. Game 1, again, aberration. Game 2, they had it close. So now was your moment to potentially take things over, and they still could not. They were just getting bullied around with simplistic plays. Like, there were numerous occasions where Mikal Bridges, for like the second time in the second half of this game, he just gets a routine push pass from one of the ball handlers, and he's able to put up just a quick shot to beat the defense. They try to get up for a contest, and yet they're so late, they're so far out of position that this attempt proves futile on both occasions. And having that just effort down low as well to make things much tighter for this 76ers lineup did them in, because they still could not protect the ball down the stretch. At times, they would make the Knicks pay and get out in transition, but those moments came few and far between. And they had to go up against the Knicks' best efforts in a set defense. And that was the worst possible thing they could have had happen. But even more revealing to me during this time, in a sense, is that with everyone else struggling, Paul George, Joel Embiid, and even Kelly Oubre Jr. starting to diminish as a shooter in this quarter, Maxey did have a few points in the fourth quarter, and yet it still didn't feel to me like they involved him enough. And that's just diabolical to me. Now, I'll expand on that point a little bit. But my thing is, like, this man is one of the better players you have on your team, clearly a franchise staple. And you are, in these cases, damn near freezing him out of the game. The same way that we were addressing, oh, hey, maybe Wembanyama in Game 1 was out of rhythm because he wasn't getting the ball enough throughout. Same kind of thing was happening to Tyrese Maxey in this game. And it just made no sense. Like, was he accurate? Sure. But when you look at the overall totals and you stack them up to everyone else, especially with what he would proceed to do just to try to keep this game alive, you'd think with a little more volume Maxey could have had a much greater impact in this game. And that's just kind of the overall fool's gold component of this. I mean, they played with bare balance. And then everything withered as they lost that overall efficiency from the floor. Like, damn, he's here for a reason. Like, this is your guy. And you're just not gonna give him touches down the stretch of the game. You juxtapose that with Jalen Brunson and this Knicks team continuing to prove themselves in the clutch and close these games out effectively, and it ended the game right then and there. They mentioned at a point that the Knicks in the regular season had a plus 238 advantage in terms of overall margin in the fourth quarter. And that would come into play once again as they went on a 13-3 run and eventually closed it out to win 108-94. For the Knicks in this game, Jalen Brunson down that stretch was automatic, putting up a great number of fourth quarter points and also ending with the most 30-point games in Knicks playoff history, currently standing at 24 as of the recording of this video. He had a near double-double with 33 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds on 11 of 22 shooting with 3 threes. And the fact that he was that efficient as well by the end of the game, had just 3 turnovers, and allowed everyone else to eat. Mikal Bridges, for example, had 23 points to flank him on 8 of 14 shooting with 2 threes. Landry Shamet off the bench, 15 points on 5 of 6 shooting, and Josh Hart also had 12 points on 6 of 12 shooting, along with 11 boards and 3 assists. Karl-Anthony Towns had 12 rebounds and 7 assists as well, proving himself to be important when he was on the floor as a facilitator from the post, like they'd been exploiting over the past few games just overall in this campaign. Yet still could only last for 26 minutes because of the 5 fouls he accrued in that time. For just no reason whatsoever. It is the same story, and it's ridiculous. But as the Knicks are winning, you're willing to overlook it, and yet the same issues arise, and they derail this Knicks team when it matters the most. So I'm like, something's got to give at some point with that. But overall, they played a very solid game. And you consider that, again, Anunoby would be confirmed out by this point of time. They did all of this without a player who has been a solidified X factor of this unit this postseason. Because they actually got Mikal Bridges to step up and prove his worth. They had Josh Hart doing the dirty work. And just multiple other guys that they wouldn't typically have in the rotation. Just coming to form when it mattered the most to provide them with quality play down the stretch. And that matters for this Knicks team if they can go that deep and find that effort anywhere, rather than just having to rely on all of their starters and rather than just having to rely on Brunson all the time to get the job done. As long as you put him in a good scenario to close a game, you're going to be just fine. That is the Brunson Ball experience. The Knicks shot 50% from the field in this game and also have 49 rebounds, a 16 rebound advantage overall, while also having 52 points in the paint. So they did just enough, and they were just a little more physical to overcome some of the 76ers' efforts here in this game. And again, a lot of them were questionable, no matter where you look at. No matter where you look. You look at Kelly Oubre Jr. in this game, like, he did shoot 7 of 16 from the field. He had 22 points. He had 2 threes. And again, cooled down towards the tail end of the game when the team overall just could not hit a shot and could not keep the ball in their possession for multiple on end. Tyrese Maxey in this game had just 12 shot attempts total. He did have 17 points, And there is always kind of the question of, hey, can you necessarily guarantee that more volume would lead to the same level of efficiency? More than likely not. However, with the way that Maxey prefers to play as a player, to take him out of his element like that for majority of this game and not even give him chances to create offense, it was just irresponsible of the 76ers. The Knicks, to their credit, again, they had a few double teams in this game. I still don't think that was enough to just completely keep the ball away from Tyrese Maxey. He has proven to you several times, hell, he proved this to you in the same series in 2024 as he was getting his overall rise as a player, that he can deliver the goods for you when he does have full-blown possession of the ball. He has shown you that. And you still, when you absolutely need it, as they are now trailing 0-3 in this series before the game later on today, you don't feed one of your best players the rock. It's insane. And by that efficiency, he was the most efficient guy. It wasn't even close. Out of all the core stars that you'd be looking for contributions from. I mean, let's take a look at Joel Embiid, for example. All the flopping around and shit. If he actually focused on basketball things, he probably would have been able to perform a lot better than 18.6 rebounds and 5 assists on 7 of 17 shooting. And no made threes. That was part of it as well. Like, a lot of those missed shots in a row came from them trying to get Joel Embiid open from deep. And even the broadcast team made a great point that, hey, maybe he doesn't have the legs for the three-point shot right now. You would hope that he does, but if you recognize that, after a while, wouldn't it just be better for you to hand it off to one of your other players here, preferably a guy like Tyrese Maxey? Even if it's open, even if the switch is there, you're settling for that, and it's clear that he can't convert them right now. You're still putting more trust in that. Incredibly ridiculous. And then Paul George. Told you I'd come back to it. All 15 of his points came in that first quarter. He proceeded to go 0 of 9 for the next 3. 0 of 9. In all honesty, if he'd been even remotely effective as a player after that first period, we may be having a different conversation in this video. Because you do want to get that kind of effort from Paul George, to be fair. If you can have him even remotely take the pressure off of each and every single one of these young players, like Maxey, like Edgecombe, that's optimal. That's ideal for an older player, an established veteran, and a well-seasoned playoff performer, especially in his Pacers and a few of his Thunder series with that team. He's been well-established as a performer. So when he's hitting those big-time shots for you, it does help your team. In that sense, they may not have been wrong to keep trusting him. But if you see that pattern developing over that long stretch of time, you've got to be able to adjust. And they just did not. They failed to do so. You can't see the man go scoreless for the rest of the game and then look back on it with regret and try to, contemplate how you would have managed this game a lot better. You handle that shit on the fly as it's going down. You don't wait till after the game, after the result is already in the history books now, to then make that decision. And again, they had to win this one. Not only are you trying to do this for your fan base in a sense, but you're also trying to avoid the ill-fated 0-3 deficit, because no one comes back from that. No one has in the entire history of the NBA. It's not like the 76ers, again, were in good graces as it was in regards to their playoff series. They had to come back from 3-1 against the Celtics just to get here. And now you're trailing in this series like this again, while throwing everything at the wall and still coming up short. I mean, obviously they have to stay alive. If they even want a chance at winning the series, they've got to win today. It all starts with that. So they are really going to need their players to step up. And again, get Maxey the ball more if you have to. If Embiid is doing that much damage to you as well, just phase out of it. If George is phasing you out of the game, just bruh, don't even worry about getting him the ball. Try to feed Maxey a little more. Yes, they're going to send the double team, but goodness gracious. And players will have to hit their shots. A lot of the, three-pointers that were created, again, some were going in early. They shot 9 of 32 from the three-point line in this game. Neither team shot well from deep, but you can't have Maxey continuing to give the ball up and not hit any of these looks on enough occasion to win this one. You can't afford it. So you have got to settle into involving him a lot more in this next game. Again, the Knicks, they will most certainly want to come out and play flawless basketball. But they have already got the upper hand at this point. They're not going to give them a game out of pity. But they are more than fine with doing exactly what they've done all series to account for this team. Because not much has changed. The 76ers are still proven that, hey, they can't last with this team. They can't hang with them. So why would they bother changing that up now? There's no point. All right. Moving on to the Spurs and the Timberwolves. And, ooh, boy. Anything that could go wrong for Minnesota. Actually, that might be the understatement of the century. How this game started, bruh. Ooh, wee. Just prepare your ears for this. The Wolves, to start out this game, yielded an 11-1 run that turned into an 18-3 deficit, while also going 1 of 15 on their field goal attempts to start out this game. And the very first score of this same game came from Rudy Gobert, of all people, slithering into the lane for a finish. Yes, Rudy Gobert started the scoring for Minnesota in this game. If that makes any lick of sense. It was not looking pretty. I'm like, whoa. Because to that point, neither team was even shooting that well inside the paint. It's not like the Spurs were blowing them out of the water in the same way that they were eventually able to in Game 2. They weren't efficient around the rim themselves. But goodness gracious, whether it just be them smoking several layups or having a few different shots just completely bounce out of the rim, and also your occasional block because Victor Wembanyama is that caliber of defender, they could not hit from down low. And it got so bad, I'm like, freaking out. I'm like, dude, there's no way that y'all are actually about to go out in this game like this at home. This is in Minnesota, okay? And they are starting the game out like this? Hell no. This can't happen. This cannot happen, bro. Like, are you serious? This was just not in the cards at all. The benefit of these things is that, again, they're happening early, okay. But, dude, 18-3 with 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. And this is also with Anthony Edwards getting the official start in this game as well. Adding another layer to it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's cooked. It's cooked. Nah, Spurs got this shit. Well, you want to talk about experience versus a lack of playoff experience. In these moments, as difficult as it is to face that kind of a deficit that early, you have got to be able to persevere it. And this Timberwolves team showed a massive amount of resilience from this point forward. Because they turned their fortunes around completely by the end of this first quarter. Despite Wembanyama himself having 9 points in the first quarter, and despite them starting 3 of 17 from the field at a specific point in this first quarter. Dude, Anthony Edwards mainly heated up for them. It's just such a weird shot diet. He scored the first point, which was a free throw in this game from Minnesota, and then proceeded to, over a 2-minute time span, get his way to the rim, draw contact on several occasions, and also just pull up from deep range, making key plays, including a buzzer beater to end off the first quarter. Before you could even blink, this Wolves team that was down by fucking 15 points, they went on a 19-5 run to close out and get within a single point, maybe two, of the lead after the first quarter, which ended 23-22 in the Spurs' favor. Just a massive turnaround that not many people would have expected. And that's where it's like, if you are San Antonio, you have to be able to stay the course and keep your foot down on the gas pedal, which they were not able to do. The big change for them during that time is that, hey, you're going to sit Wembanyama out because typically the Spurs aren't going to run him for the entire first quarter. This isn't the damn Nuggets system. They aren't having him be like Jokic out here and play all 12 minutes with the first quarter of the game. The second he got substituted, the Wolves, again, in the same way that Edwards is doing it wasn't even just him. You even had Gobert putting the fucking ball on the floor and getting to the rim at will, attacking Luke Cornett and others. That's how proficient they were getting there. And that energy started to build up for them in a massive way entering the second quarter of this game. Because it's not like it stopped there. I mean, Julius Randle himself is still going to be in a position where he'd want to take advantage of those matchups against lighter guards in the post. And to his credit, he did attempt to do so. Now, having a potential decoy on that in one such case, it actually opened up a great look for Naz Reid. So, with their ability to know that, hey, they're still trying to drive to the paint, they're also now getting quality shooting. That makes things incredibly interesting for the Spurs defense. Because, again, now you have to play with some thought. They were continuing to draw Wembanyama far out of position in trying to create high percentage looks. You even had this go down once Jaden McDaniels, in a later sequence here, was able to draw out for a defensive rebound and get the ball over to Julius Randle with enough space for him to easily get to the rim and even put up a dunk over Wembanyama. interestingly enough. So his intensity was there. And he was also, throughout this quarter, able to draw multiple fouls on Carter Bryant, who did himself have 6 points in the second quarter. I thought that he was going to have the matchup on Julius Randle, to be honest with you. And yet it still did not pay off as much as they would have expected, because Julius Randle is just too big and too strong once he gets that back to the basket. There isn't much a defense can do unless you just force him to be incredibly inefficient. And we'll get to that point later, probably, I think. Goodness gracious, man. Yeah, man, my goodness, bro. I tell you, man. Jeez. That being said, even with all of this going down, Wembanyama wasn't taking any shit. I mean, he himself proceeded to get an and one off of a layup and then subsequent push after said dunk by Randle. So he was very much involved in the game, and they made that point ever since the aberration that was game one in a way for him. They wanted that. And with high percentage looks, while also settling in enough to take shots outside of the structure of the offense as well, it just made things incredibly diverse for their overall offense. Yet they had to overcome a bit of struggle themselves. Now, the thing is, even with Wembanyama doing this, some of the guard play was still in question, especially De'Aaron Fox. He did not have a great start to this game. This man was just not as accurate as you'd hope that he would be. He was able to change the pace, and on occasion he was able to create some good looks for other teammates, including one of his later passes where, he was a very good facilitator. Like, there was a play early in the first quarter, he just whips a pass in very short space over to Keldon Johnson for a contested layup, and he's just feeding his teammates exceptionally well. So that plus helped when he was out there. They had to try to get him settled into things, because while he wasn't, the Wolves still kept this game relatively close heading into the later portion of the second quarter. In fact, with Naz Reid hitting another three-pointer, and his shot making was highly valuable in this game, they actually took the lead for a brief period of time. So, again, just overall, keeping things consistent and giving them a great punch after being down by that much that early. Like, that is a great display of what this Timberwolves team can do, even when it seems like they are down and out. No lead is safe, and I guess around these Timberwolves, it truly is not. They ended the quarter once again, after some back and forth between both teams, with another buzzer beater, this time from Jaden McDaniels, stepping back and hitting one over Wembanyama to tie the game. Initially, there was believed to be like a loose ball foul on Stephon Castle at this time, and they instead overturned it, so the half just ended from there. 51 all after that deficit. Complete and total insanity, looking at it that way. They also, again, with their ability to get downhill, it created more opportunities for them to beat these players on the glass. They had 14 second chance points, which was tied for the most they had in any playoff half. Minnesota, that is. So even if they weren't as efficient to start off the game, if they could continue to blitz this San Antonio team, and especially their wings, with that proficiency on the glass, hey, they were more than willing to wear this team out if it came down to that. Man. Bro. they just continued to falter a little bit. Like, man, there aren't many ways to account for a player that stands at 7'6" per some people, okay? They held him down, held his arms back on rebounds, and actually got himself a foul in that sequence at some point. He even had to try to kind of give him a little nudge in a vital area of his body just to keep him off the glass. And then when it came to his scoring, even though he didn't always take his shots inside the paint, the motherfucker started to splash from deep. So we're actively expanding the range in real time. And he, with all of that in mind, would have 9 points in this third quarter to spur this team. No pun intended. The Wolves themselves, they were able to match at least well enough to keep things close. And that's really what you want. You consider how they themselves, as I said on numerous times, they were outpaced and outrun in that game too. And they brought it up on the broadcast at several points that, hey, we cannot keep allowing this Spurs team to get out in transition and beat us. So, while Wembanyama and while the Spurs offense is doing all of this, they had to work a lot harder for it. And the Wolves were more than content with that particular aspect of things, as long as things were not getting out of control. With that being said, they were able to force De'Aaron Fox in foul trouble. And he had a very short amount of contributions in the third quarter, but important enough to make him valuable out there, especially as a closer for this Spurs team. So that was a positive for the Wolves as well, heading into the later stretch of this third quarter, where they continued to get great shooting effort from Naz Reid, and you also had Anthony Edwards continue to create his own realm of offense. And this is a man who, again, is going to have all the focus while not even being at 100%, yet he is trying his absolute hardest to keep his scoring at a good amount, and also open up shots for others. Ayo Dosunmu was able to get several threes in the third quarter alone, just off assists from Anthony Edwards. And it opened the whole thing up from there. This lead was back within 4. And the Spurs, with Keldon Johnson going on a little bit of a tear here, they were able to go up by 7 by the end of the quarter with an 86-79 score. Both teams as well in this quarter, crazily enough, like they were that proficient from 3, and you consider how both of these teams started out with regards to shooting efficiency, it was not good. The fact that these teams constantly had one response after another response after another response from 3-point range in the same game, that you had a 1 of 15 shooting start from at least one of these teams. I'm literally like, how the hell did we get here? That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And yeah, during this quarter, Castle and McDaniels got tangled up as well, because Harper was down for a second. Harper is the only rookie in this playoff run with at least 10 points per game, along with 50% shooting from the field and 40% shooting from deep. So this Spurs team just as well. They go deep too. And man, he had been one of the more crucial players to this overall series, I think, in regards to box plus minus they mentioned. So having his talent out there was definitely huge for the Spurs team. And McDaniels hit him in a fashion to where he's just sprawled out on the floor. So they get tangled up for a second. McDaniels apparently slaps Stephon Castle after a push, and I think he gets teed up here. So that puts him in even more foul trouble on a night where overall, although his impact is helpful for the most part, his shooting display was not the greatest or even remotely efficient in this game. So you're just piling that on, and it just puts the Wolves behind the 8 ball. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Then you get into the fourth quarter. These young players for the Spurs would just step up overall. Like, yes, the experience of the Wolves came in full force and hit them fast in the first half of this game. They more than had their own answers down the stretch. Because when they absolutely needed to match the intensity, they did. And then some. I mean, you did have plays where Terrence Shannon Jr. and Ayo Dosunmu were able to force pressure on the Spurs defense on multiple occasions. And the Wolves were not dead in the water. Like, they were right there with them every single time. They got this lead back down to as low as 1, in fact, with just getting down to the rim, sticking to their game plan, and forcing contact. Their backs were against the wall when you think about it. With Jaden McDaniels' ability to get that down, he actually forced Victor Wembanyama to commit his 5th foul of the game. For all the good things that Victor Wembanyama had been doing on offense, he was deep in foul trouble. And it was not just him. Yeah, we had already mentioned Fox. We already mentioned Castle. Clearly, you'd want to have all those guys out there at the same time to make the best possible impact on the game. And if even one of them were to go out, that could have changed up a lot for how the Timberwolves would approach this, as they already had it this close. Then the switch flipped. I don't know how many times they're going to allow Julian Champagnie to shoot open three-pointers. It makes absolutely no sense. Like, you can't afford to have situations like that. You get the game down that close, and you just leave the best three-point shooter on the team that wide open, again, to do whatever he wants. It makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, but I digress. And oh yeah, Dylan Harper as well. Dude, that man was putting in fucking work in the post. He was getting in the dunker spot because they left him wide open on that with a feed from Wembanyama as his shot clock was winding down. Like, those lapses in those moments are ridiculous. And then you just, again, have things you can't control. This man, Victor Wembanyama, early in the quarter was literally just playing pitch and fucking catch with himself to get up buckets at the hoop. He was still splashing from deep range near the fucking logo. And he was giving Rudy Gobert the fucking work with turnaround shots, with breakdowns, ball in his hand on a string at 7'5", just taking him to fucking school. So what? He's his mentor. In a way, the teacher becomes a lot better than the student becomes a lot better than the teacher. Like, bruh, you can have all that advice from Gobert. I ain't going. Fuck. All right. In all seriousness, though, they didn't really have much of an answer. And how can you? Man had 14 points in the fourth quarter by himself, accounting for nearly half of what was scored. So that just, man, that really took the life out of the Wolves for a second. They tried their absolute hardest, and the intensity was there. But those flows, those droughts especially, really came back to bite them. And for the first few times in this game, they allowed them to beat them in transition badly. And I'm like, up to that point, they've been doing so well. It's like, now you choose to have those slips on defense. It's tough. It's tough. They fought until the very end. You had Anthony Edwards put up a very critical three-point shot with around 30 seconds left. The game was at 5 points in terms of deficit, so it might not have mattered all that much. But they were more than trying in this game. Still, they came up short with a 115-108 loss on their end. Now, the fourth quarter was also significant for the Wolves for a different reason, because after a timeout was called, or with Chris Finch trying to get one in, he and Tony Brothers proceeded to have multiple confrontations with each other. And I ain't gonna lie, Tony Brothers was trying to walk this man down. He was talking crazy. He was trying to get up in his grill, and then Chris Finch just walked the hell away on both of those occasions. I don't know what was said. I'd be very interested to know what was said. Not even to be that kind of guy. I'm just I need the context. Because the way this man, Tony Brothers, was moving and acting, I'm like, damn, what the hell could he have possibly said to make that motherfucker that mad? Right? There's no way he's about to pop off like this. In my mind, some had to go down. And I'm sure in time they'll be able to figure that out. But who knows? In this game, though, the Wolves, again, they got slightly beat in transition, but they responded well. They had 54 rebounds, 15 of them being offensive rebounds. They shot 85.7% from the free throw line as well. Not the floor, absolutely not. Could you imagine a real live game where a team is shooting that proficient from the field? Goodness gracious. And they did a decent enough job of protecting the basketball. Turnovers weren't really much of an issue in this game for both teams. Again, down that stretch in those pockets, they just put themselves in some absolute mismatches here. And it was just very hard for them to really find a way to counter any of it. Anthony Edwards in this game had 32 points and 14 rebounds, along with 6 assists for a double-double, on 12 of 26 shooting with 3 three-pointers. Naz Reid himself also had 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists off the bench on 6 of 13 shooting 4 threes. So again, he was more than doing his own job from deep. Rudy Gobert even had 13 points on 6 of 7 shooting from the field, and they called that a highly efficient game from him. By comparison, we'll get to that. Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels and Ayo Dosunmu and Terrence Shannon Jr. and Michael Conley Jr. very much struggled to hit their shots. Now, again, a lot of that is attributed to the early stretch of play that took place. But there isn't a world in which, amongst McDaniels himself, he shot 5 for 22 in this game. 5 for 22. Yes, he made 3 three-pointers. Every other shot he attempted to take was just not very high percentage. Not even close. He had to deal with Wemby on some of those occasions, and it's in that point, yeah, everyone's going to struggle. So it's not like you can harp on him harp on that point in regards to him, but man, at that point, dude, you are just shooting the ball way too much. And yes, he's gotten that trust from the coaching staff. Jeez. Ended up backfiring tremendously. Same for Julius Randle. There were moments as well where this dude, I didn't even mention it in the flow of the first quarter, this dude on one of these possessions, man, he is in the paint near Wembanyama, drawing him in, and Gobert is also trailing behind him with a chance to get a layup at the rim if Randle chooses to pass the ball. I don't know what decision he was trying to make. Either he was trying to shoot it or he was trying to pass the ball in Gobert's direction. In either case, he just launches it straight to the backboard and it bounces off, leading to one of the earliest transition opportunities for the Spurs. And one of the dumbest displays of match. Like, they literally caught this man in between a decision. You have to just pick and choose at that point. Do something, anything else than whatever the hell happened on that play. He proceeded to go for 12 points and 6 rebounds on 3 of 12 shooting in this game, and no made three-pointers. They mentioned how badly he'd been struggling from that range of the floor. And it does give this team another layer when he himself is accurate from that range. But they just could not find that at all in this game. Not at all. And then for the Spurs in this game, man, yeah, Wemby just terrorized these folks, man. 39 points on 13 of 18 shooting with 3 3-pointers, 10 made free throws, and also 15 rebounds, and also 5 blocks in this game. He didn't even end up fouling out, allowing him to continue having that impact throughout the rest of the game. And you just look at the overall progression. He went from that kind of struggle in Game 1 to a near 2015 performance in Game 2, and then damn near 40 points and 15 rebounds in Game 3. To the point where, with his 35 point, 15 rebound rather, and 5 block game, he became the 4th player to do that all time in the playoffs. And the names in which he has joined on that list of players, it's a very short one. But what do all of these 3 have in common? Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Shaquille O'Neal are the only other 3 to have ever done that in a playoff game. And all of them have, at the very least, a Finals MVP to their name. All of them, at the very least, were, for a good stretch of time, scoring assassins in the NBA. And oh yeah, all of those guys are Hall of Famers. Each and every single one of them. And Wembanyama just joined that short list with this performance in this game. That is just wild. And reminder, the dude is only 22 years old doing this shit. That is mental to think about. And it was not just him. Although the game will go down like that. It was not just him. You can question a lot of the efficiency of the other players. For example, De'Aaron Fox shot 7 of 19 in this game. Stephon Castle shot 3 of 11 in this game. Devin Vassell shot 6 of 14 in this game. But each and every single one of those guys, when it mattered the most, they made the textbook plays. And they were making the right decisions to assist each other and lift each other up and get the deal done that way. Carter Bryant coming in and giving them that 6-point stretch. Dylan Harper hanging in the game, giving them that 8-point stretch. The threat genuinely comes from anywhere. Even if you consider this a Wemby night. And it would be fair to with that kind of performance. Like, sure. But even with all that being said, this Spurs team, at the end of this one, would take a 2-1 lead heading into the game that will take place later on today. So that's very promising. Moving on to the Pistons and Cavs game yesterday. And bro, like, this is just crazy. Because if you notice, you had just each and every single one of these games start out with the possession acquiring team scoring the very first points of the game in just a matter of seconds. And you quite literally had Duncan Robinson just launch a fuck you 3 deep in the air and deep from range to do the exact same thing. The exact same thing. 3 games in a row for the first 3. Like, that's wild to consider. Now, that's, well, man, I mean, dude, it's kind of wild because you're seeing a shot like that go in. And it's within just the first few seconds of the game. In some of those cases, for the really great teams out there, you see a shot like that go in to start a game, and you're instantly wiring yourself to think, oh, we gonna have ourselves a great day at the office. We're gonna make and take any kind of shot that we want to, and they are not gonna have an answer for us at all. Well, newsflash for them. Yeah, this just was not a great start to the game from the field for the Pistons. Not even remotely. I mean, oh my gosh. Like, at a point in the first half, I believe, it was mentioned that the Pistons had a 14-1 advantage in offensive rebounds. Oh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. They were not hitting their shots. They did have a few runs on occasion, and they did have Tobias Harris remain as their most effective player simply from doing his damage in the post and taking advantage of Jordan Tyson specifically on those plays. So that helped them. Outside of that, you didn't get much else. As great as the concentration is, to have a guy like Asar Thompson and even Cade Cunningham himself pulling down multiple offensive rebounds in this, Cleveland, put the pressure on them. And especially when it came to accounting for Cunningham. Again, he's going to get his no matter what. But early, they just imposed their will against him. They did not want to give him any room to operate. And they wanted to let him know that they were going to be there all game long on him, sticking to him like white on rice. He was not going to go free and go off in the ways that he had in the first couple of games. Not quite. Not without some form of effort from them to at least slow him down this time. And that paid dividends for Cleveland as they were able to take a lead early in this one. You also had Donovan Mitchell just set the tone off the rip. What's new in regards to that? I mean, that's typical for a Donovan Mitchell game when you think about it. He himself had 9 first quarter points, and this man was literally just getting to the rim at will. Like, you just saw it multiple times. He's just speeding past these players at this point. And it all comes down to that first step. I mean, the second he is able to do that to you and get you out of the way or to his side, like, it's a wrap. He's going to beat you straight to the cup. And that is exactly what ended up happening. The Cavs themselves, it took them a while to miss even just their first shot in this game. And considering the problems that the Pistons had, the game was still fairly close by the end of the first quarter. But the Cavs themselves, they were shooting greater than 70% from the floor. Their situation just continued to be protecting the damn basketball and preventing the silly-ass turnovers, which still did benefit the Pistons. So as long as they could slow that down and maintain that level of efficiency, dude, they were going to be fine. I'm thinking. I mean, hey, it felt that way because they extended things in the second quarter. By far. I mean, yes, when it came down to James Harden, there were still some super turnovers there. There was one in particular dude. He's trying to swing it out to the corner, and you have Cade Cunningham being the only person in the area. Jordan Tyson is at the wing, and you just, Jalen Tyson is at the wing, and you have Harden just swing it right over to Cunningham. It's one of the easiest interceptions you'll see in terms of a steal. I don't know where that came from. But no, in all seriousness, and in all honesty, the Cavs were, yeah, they were here. Yeah, go ask Evan Mobley about it. I mean, fuck. Like, this man in back-to-back, well, not even in back-to-back, but in multiple points of this quarter, he went up and over Isaiah Stewart to the point where he put this nigga on posters. On multiple occasions. On posters, I should say. You talk about nuts in your face. This man was getting smothered with them. Like one of them. You have Mitchell throw that bitch up from over the half court line. And he converted it. In that fashion on Isaiah Stewart. He got so bad for Isaiah Stewart that he got in deep foul trouble and they couldn't even play him for a stretch towards the latter portion of this game. And that was just the icing on the cake, to be completely honest with you. Plus, Donovan Mitchell as well was just continuously automatic as a scorer. Dude had 11 points in the second quarter as well. Scoring from all over the floor, really. And just getting his way at that point. The Pistons, despite their ability to work on the glass, because they still had the overall advantage in rebounds, they again were just far too inefficient. It was like with Dennis Schroeder and other people taking the assignment on Cade Cunningham. They just made that man uncomfortable as hell. And everything else, in turn, was not going to work out in the same way. As we've mentioned at several points, it's essentially like Cunningham. The offense is going to run through him, and the team goes as he does. And with him struggling to that extent, they did not even look like they were making this a fair fight for themselves. It just did not look the part. And the Pistons themselves, for the first time in the series, they would be the ones trailing by more than double digits at the halftime period. So, quite the turnaround there, and a solid start for the Cavs considering everything that they'd been going through. They ended off that quarter on a 14-4 run, and they were in the zone. So having those things go right for you after those tough losses in both of the first couple games, it was very beneficial to them. It's also not been atypical. Again, they've won every single game they've played at home in this playoff run. And so they'd be looking for yet another display of that if they could have an optimal finish to the second half of the game. The thing is, it didn't come without a large amount of resistance. While the Pistons still had to work for pretty much every single bucket they got, they very much shortened the lead in this game. They went on a 17-5 run, and they actually, for a time in the third quarter, they took the lead back because the Cavs, to this point, they just could not stay consistent with protecting the basketball. Everything else was in rhythm. They were forcing the inefficiency. They were still selling out for the paint and forcing the Pistons to shoot, which for them did not work in this game at all because of the lack of efficiency from range. So all that was going according to plan. But then you have this massive slip in the third quarter, and now all of a sudden they're starting to find their stride again. And Cade Cunningham as well, after struggling for most of the game, he himself had like 10 points and 4 rebounds, 10 points and 4 assists rather, I believe, in the third quarter of this game alone. So you're on double pace there. It was ridiculous. And on one such occasion, like, to just emphasize this point, like, you have a matchup where he's on Donovan Mitchell, and Mitchell, for some reason, he just loses the ball off his shoes. Once again, inexplicably and unforced. It's not like Cunningham is directly swiping at the ball here. No. He's just standing there, he's space guarding. And you lose the ball in that situation to feed the transition opportunity. It's exactly how the Pistons got back into this game. And it's how they want to generate their offense. And here you are helping them out doing exactly that. Like, I'm literally feeling this change in real time. And I'm like, dude, don't start this shit now. Like, come on, dude. Don't start this now, bro, when it comes to the turnovers, man. You have got to do better than that. And you know that. Like, just please. I beg you. They would just do it anyways. You know, my voice don't fucking matter. They don't know who I am. Yeah. And it got to the point where, again, Isaiah Stewart wasn't in. I don't know who the hell Paul Reed was feeling like. Like, what? I don't know what the hell Paul Reed was on in this game. I'm not gonna lie to you. I saw this nigga take a fucking post shot and turn around and, like, what? Paul Reed, post shooting, playing good defense, and being a bit of an energizer bunny for this Pistons defense in 2026, I would have never envisioned that shit. I'm not gonna lie to you. The second I saw that happen, I'm like, oh yeah, he's trying to have the game of his life right now. There's no way that I saw him pull that off in real time. I'm like, what? What the fuck? Okay, fine. That works. In all seriousness, by the end of the third quarter, the Cavs would go back up again. So you were starting to get a little bit of a back and forth here. And so, as I noted, you had to be able to execute in these final 12 minutes. And that attention to detail in a game that is more than likely going to be this close again, it's going to matter. The Cavs had failed those tests in both of the first two games. As that said, they take the leads late, and they blow them in horrible proportions. They blow them. So could they, if they were able to retake it, could they maintain that over a full quarter and weather the storm? The 7 fourth quarter points from Paul Reed aside, yes. Yes, they did. And it took some very smart basketball plays. On the one end, like, there was an ATO where they just swing the hell out of the basketball. And it gets Dennis Schroeder open with virtually no contest in the corner for a three. They did have a little bit of an issue because Evan Mobley was deep in foul trouble. He himself had 5 fouls. Max Strus would get up to 5 fouls as well. And he provided them with some tremendous hustle overall in the game and some good shooting. So they needed to be able to clean that up in time. And they were still aggressive. You know, one of these possessions, I'm like, do you want Allen at the free throw line compared to Green from deep? Probably not, but he ended up making them both, and the Cavs were able to increase their lead a little bit. So that ended up helping them out. The defense also continued to play well, to the point where frustrated Dennis Jenkins, he committed a flagrant foul, or at least something that appeared to be the case early in the fourth quarter. Ironically enough, Scott Foster, the series extender himself, didn't call it a flagrant foul. Because he's tough. He'll be all right, I guess. Like, what? You see this man get smacked into oblivion, Dennis Schroeder. And by that point, Jenkins and Schroeder had already gotten into it in the first quarter. And then they had to be separated by Jalen Tyson. So, you already had that background and that happens and no penalty goes right, it's a little interesting to me, especially with what Scott Foster is known to do. But, okay, what do you need to say? Yeah, so it had all been going well for them to this point. And then they allowed the Pistons to take it over because, of course, they did. They allowed them to go on a 10-3 run as Cade Cunningham would once again show up and show out in the fourth quarter. Once again. And the brief tear that he had nearing clutch time and entering a little bit into it, that would be just a warm-up. That would be just a warm-up. Because could you be fully prepared for what happened next? Not necessarily. But man, it is something that the Cavs fans have been waiting for a long period of time in this overall playoff run. Because they've been mentioning at several occasions that, hey, we are trying to get James Harden to play that Rocket style of basketball. The ISO possessions, the step back moves, the breakdowns into the dribble drives in the paint to force the penetration and the collapse. They were trying to get back to that. And man, although Harden for most of the game up to this point had kind of been a little quieter on the scoring end, man, he chose the right time to dig back into that vintage bag and pull that shit off. I meant every single word that I said in game 2. The man more than answered the call when he had to in this particular game. And again, with it being a struggle for teams to come back from 0-3, he absolutely had to. And going toe-to-toe with Cade Cunningham, he did exactly that. I mean, there's a stretch where, before we even get to that, Max Strus literally stealing a fucking inbounds pass, leaping up for it and getting out in transition for an easy dunk to make this game even tighter. And then the real show begins. You have Harden just putting up this silky smooth floater with a roll on the drive to the paint. Then he's getting into his signature moves and cross, getting down into the lane for another mid-range shot that just cashes in. And at this point, there's about a minute left or so in this game, while the Pistons themselves are struggling to protect the ball, which was another good turn for Cleveland. Then you get James Harden once again. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Man, you had him take Tobias Harris near the wing, and he just rains in a deep-ass three-pointer. Not before Cade himself in the same time span goes off for 5 points of his own, including a absolutely massive leaning shot from three-point range off the glass to bring this game within one. It's like 110 to 109 with mere seconds left on the clock. I think a little over 40. So Harden gets this ball back again. And they clear out. They give him the ISO possession that he is looking for. This has been something in the making for the entire playoff campaign up to this point. That's how it has been. But when the time came for him to deliver, he did exactly that. Now, it could be argued that this was a foul. He did absorb contact from Tobias Harris once again, kind of jumped into it. But he just bangs in the shot once again to give them the 113 to 109 lead. And it had been done. A 9-point fourth quarter stretch from James Harden, when they were in danger of going down a third game in this series. Man rose up and showed you that, hey, even at his age, even with these mistakes, this is still the man that you want to close a playoff game with. This is still the man that they trust in that moment, despite their earlier struggles in this series, to bring them home. And yes, Donovan Mitchell had performed exceptionally well in this game. That's why they traded for James Harden. And he proved that to several people. A lot of people. Without question in this game. Eventually, with some more miscues from the Pistons, they ended up losing this game. So the Cavs here would get their very first of the series. Now again, yes, it helps that they were at home and able to do this again. This is how it's typically been for them to this point. So that much isn't really in question for them when they are in their own space. But man, they have to be able, again, because like I did say in the last video, this still reigns true. What is going to happen if they are facing these scenarios on the road? You can't continue to rely on that. But for the time being, they will take this victory in stride and they will celebrate. Like, they shot 58.1% from deep in this game and had 17 less shots. Again, when you're hitting, you're hitting. They shot 37.5% from deep. And free throw struggles were definitely an issue for them. I mean, Evan Mobley, including him in this equation, the dude actually remained aggressive for most of the game, and I did like a lot of the shots he took. He ended up taking the very first free throw he had all series, and he missed 5 in this game. So this could have been a bit different if he would have been more proficient from the line. You could say that about a lot of their different players here. Even James Harden missed a free throw. But hey, like, they got the job done. They overcame an absolute just surge of action from this team, and they got it done. They were able to force 27 points off turnovers, and they themselves just truly did a great job of hanging in there and making life a living hell for these Pistons ball handlers. Returning the favor a little bit after what had been happening to them in the first couple games. Donovan Mitchell had 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists on 13 of 24 shooting with 2 threes, while James Harden had 19 points on 8 of 14 shooting with 3 threes. Jared Allen continued to dominate, having 18 points on 7 of 9 shooting, and Dennis Schroeder also gave them 11 points off the bench, which is fairly valuable, as they've looked for him to be that kind of secondary scorer in a way off of the bench. And you have guys like Tyson and Merrill and Strus surrounding him as shooters, and guys that he can distribute the ball to, which when they were effective, they did decent enough to continue playing, especially Strus. So those are great things for the Cavs, especially if they can continue to get back to their ways in regards to shooting. That's the key for them. And with them, I guess, just again, not really respecting the Pistons enough as shooters, despite what they had done in the first couple games. it just tells me that like they'll stick to that. They'll live with the Pistons shooting these shots. It even got to a point where Asar Thompson had 2 open looks at 3-pointers in the corner, and he actually ended up making one. Did that stop them from approaching him the same way? No, not necessarily. And the Cavs can't rely always on hoping that a miss will take place, but at the same time, what are you going to say? It led to them winning 116 to 109. Can't complain about that at all. Wow. As for the Pistons, they shot 36% from deep. And while they did reach 45.1% shooting from the field overall, man, that was a much uglier conversion rate in the first half of the game. They put forth a spirited effort in the second half. They still allowed the Cavs to just weather the storm and stay the course in this game, despite them having 12 more offensive rebounds in this game. And despite them having a few more points in the paint, they just could not for long enough keep themselves in good standing between the wasted possessions and the lackluster defense on the other end to last in this game. Cade Cunningham had 27 points and 10 assists with 10 rebounds for a triple-double. He also had 8 turnovers in this game and was deep in foul trouble as well, putting together a real possibility that, hey, they might have had to sit him down at times, and that would have been even worse for the Pistons to have to deal with in clutch time. Luckily, it never got to that point. But just a complete and total meltdown from them in this case. And he shot 10 of 27 from the field, which is highly inaccurate, especially for his standards. Again, when it's going well, you're going to be in good hands. When it's not, and when you still struggle to have many other people step up, that consistently, it becomes troublesome. Now, it's not like they were completely devoid of it. I mean, Tobias Harris had 21 points and 5 rebounds on 7-14, shooting with 2 threes, while Duncan Robinson had 15 points and 4 threes as well on 5 of 9 shooting. Paul Reed and Jalen Duren also both had 11 points each. But in those pockets of time, early in this game, and even in the early portion of the fourth quarter here, you could have had just a little bit more take place. And instead, you come away leaving a lot on the table, which is never the position in which you want to find yourself as a team. But hey, again, they avoid that 0-3 deficit, and man, things should become very interesting with the next game being, tomorrow. As of the recording of this video, it's Sunday. And then to move on from that into just like, man, like, bro, okay. Yes, in the first 3 games, you had teams score first when they got possession, and in an instant. You'd get something very different in this Lakers game last night. What could that possibly be, you may ask? It was, in the very first second of the game, DeAndre Ayton being called for a foul on Chet Holmgren. On the tip-off, he smacks the shit out of Chet Holmgren and is called for a foul in the first second of the game. the starting lineups were just formally announced in real time. The broadcasters didn't even have a chance to fully settle themselves into the introduction to the game. And you already have DeAndre Ayton fouling. From that point forward, I knew it was over. And this series has been this way in each and every single one of these games up to this point, where the Lakers, they will sell you a dream. They will give you the hope, and you will still get your hearts ripped the fuck out with this team in a very slow but inevitable burn. That's exactly what this game felt like. Because you want to talk about them selling you a dream. Dude, the production was there somewhat offensively, thanks mainly to Rui Hachimura in the way in which he has been lighting it up from deep. Like they showed it on the graphic, he himself had been averaging 58% shooting from the three-point line in the 13 games prior. And he had himself 9 points in the first quarter doing exactly that, lighting it up from deep, which helped immensely with the fact that the Thunder were still trying to dominate the paint with that double big lineup that the Lakers had no answer for. So that was helping the Lakers out a little bit, especially early in this game. It's just too bad that they still proceeded to give up a 12-3 run later in this first quarter, and in the same fell swoop get beat with the same game plan. Because you, on the other end, you don't necessarily have the same kind of talent, but you are also going to sell out to guard the paint for the sole reason that you just don't want to get attacked that much down there. And promptly that left Cason Wallace open on multiple occasions, as it would be him to go for 11 points in the first quarter alone, lighting their asses up and making them pay for leaving him wide open on that many occasions. And it sunk this Lakers team a little bit earlier, as they were down 31-25 by the end of the quarter. Now, from there on, I mean, you still had them just trying to establish their dominance. Now, there were occasions where, for example, there was a possession, Hartenstein and SGA had so many cracks at the layup attempts because of just how bad the Lakers defense is. You have virtually no one down there, and you have, I think, just a guard in the vicinity here trying to account for this. They struggle to even get the shot in the rim, and then they proceed to give the ball up, which is kind of weird to me. Like, that's very surprising, and I'm sure that you're not going to see that all that often. For the most part, it didn't happen. I mean, you literally had Isaiah Joe, of all people, to, end off the first quarter, transition in a second. This nigga muscled down a fucking board over who? Over who? Yeah. Well, we're gonna get there. And again, it's not just him, but it is a defense thing overall. They have no rim protection, and so the Thunder were able to just do whatever they wanted to in the paint. Plus, you're still going to leave Jared McCain wide open after this motherfucker just gave you 18 points and 18 minutes off the bench. You're going to leave him wide open again. And they promptly got beat, and it just added more fuel to the fire for this Thunder team to utilize. And still, the Lakers shooting kept them honest. There were, honestly, not a lot of ways in which they could get down into the paint and make their plays. But they were remaining proficient from deep. It was still Hachimura putting together several deep buckets. It was Luke Kennard putting together that effort as well, starting to harness some of that energy he had in the first couple games of the Rockets series from that area of the floor, and it kept them alive in this game. It truly did, at least in the first half. Like, they were on the money, and it felt at times like they could not miss. So you get to a point at that time where they are in a real position to take the lead entirely. Now, of course, this wasn't without resistance. A.J. Mitchell was carving up this defense, carving up the living shit out of them. So they had to get that together. But still, things were going fine. You had Austin Reeves put together an 11-point second quarter as well, and also had the Lakers going a 10-2 run during this time. Everything was going well. And they also had DeAndre Ayton end off the quarter with a nice putback dunk. Everything was going fine. Everything was trending upwards for this team. They were shooting like 55% from three-point range after taking the 59-57 lead at halftime. I think that was the specific number. 55% from range. And that's great. Because if you're going to have a team shooting that well, naturally, the opponent's going to have to stop selling out for the paint. They've got to respect your shot just a little bit. And now more paint opportunities can open up for this Lakers team. They can have more open lanes to work with. And that could be a great complementary asset to have in this game. So, those are a good look to start out the game. Still, you have to ask yourself, and even watching the halftime show, even Shaq posed the question, like, can they keep shooting like that? It is a very large number. And it's going to fluctuate a little bit. That is just the natural flow of the game. So again, back to my little error there. Like, you're rarely going to see a team, you're never going to see a team finish with that kind of proficiency from the field. Because even the most routine shots will occasionally miss just because what, is given on these missed and made shots can also be taken. Very much so. Nothing's a guarantee. So there are bound to be some different swings there, of course. You're bound to get several different bounces that lead to misses or makes. It just happens. That's how it goes. But again, not even just from that standpoint. Like, if they could truly maintain that, oh yeah, like they had the opportunity. They had the opportunity. It was there. It was there, man. It was there. It was there. It was there. And then the third quarter, the ill-fated third quarter, just undid everything for them because they allowed a 15-2 run over at least 3 minutes of time. The Lakers did, and then proceeded to, by the time the quarter ended, give up another 6-0 run to close. They just still struggled, really, to find any sort of footing, even remotely close to the paint. And some of that is DeAndre Ayton literally not using his size to his advantage and his wingspan. Literally. And it was not just DeAndre Ayton either. Some shots were still going in, although Rui Hachimura from 3 started to decline a little bit, although Luke Kennard from 3 started to decline a little bit. And it allowed the Thunder as well to get their mojo back just a little bit and enough to start imposing their own physical dominance with the same kinds of moves, getting out, running, because in ways with what has been already said, they are just going to be much faster than this older Lakers squad. And that's the last thing that they wanted to happen, as this lead just ballooned up off of that alone. Now, they were able to hold themselves down a little bit. And you do have to credit Marcus Smart with his overall defense on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the game. Although on occasion, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was still able to break out of that. But his effort when he was on the court at least allowed the Lakers to, shorten the game on the defensive end. And it did settle them into some good offensive sets towards the tail end of the third quarter. So they got this lead, briefly back within 5 before Isaiah Joe proved just how valuable of a sharpshooter he is. With that making up the 6-0 run to give the Thunder an 11-point lead heading into the fourth quarter. Also, as I said, it was not just DeAndre Ayton from inside. Because it is at this time that we have to address the elephant in the room. LeBron. All you fucking fanboys out there. Can you defend the fact that this man, last night, up to the end of the third quarter, shot 1 of 9 inside the paint? And it's not just like they were crowding the paint against a 41-year-old LeBron. It's not like they were doing that. No, these were takes. He went out of his own way to initiate. Whether it be in the fast break, whether it be them dumping the ball down to him and trusting that against a smaller player, he can even bank in a shot off the glass. No. None of that. 1 of 9 inside the paint for LeBron in this game. Please, I want you so hard to try to defend that. I dare you to. Because there's just no way that you can't. You're going to sit there and tell me now, he's an old man. You can't expect all that from LeBron. Nigga. 1 of 9 inside the paint. From a player who has made a career off of driving to the rim and getting those shots up at will. Yes, the father time component is real. That's fair. But in terms of these layups, the shot diet that he was receiving in this game, even if you can argue that the athleticism has waned off a lot, even if you can argue that some of the finishing around the rim has lost a bit of a step, you still have to be able to perform a lot better than that from down low. And this is a guy who is considered the best player that the Lakers have right now for obvious reasons. And you are actively struggling in your common habitat. That's where he made a living for years. For over a decade and change in his athletic prime. Even if the stylistic finishes, even if those powerhouse tomahawk dunks aren't always going to be in his repertoire at this age, he still has got enough to make way more than 1 of 9. And he proceeded to get up with what I saw only like one more make inside the paint in this game. Now, that doesn't take into account all of the mid-range shooting and the overall shooting that he had in this game. But when it comes to that, and just all the little things that seem to be hurting the Lakers and, sabotaging their chances at winning this game, it is hard for me to overlook that. It's hard to know that you went like 2 of more than at least 10 shots in the paint as the best player for this Lakers team. How the hell is that supposed to transfer over to everyone else? That's just not good. So that is a case where it's like, yes, I can say, DeAndre Ayton sucks. Well, he does suck, but this is not a game where you can just scapegoat him for this shit. No, go at the man himself that you would consider, for the most part, if you're a fucking fanboy and a hardcore LeBron James fan, consider as the number one player of all time. The expectation is unfair in a way for a 41-year-old, which is why the Lakers, in a sense, were going to be overmatched in this series no matter what. The expectation is a lot to expect him to be on his A game in each and every single game in this series. And up to this point, he had been. So maybe there's a case of like, oh, he's afforded to have a down game. Not necessarily. He is the last line of defense that this Lakers team has at the moment. So there's that component to it as well. It's not to completely bash and shit on LeBron, but you have to be honest. If that is the talent that you possess as a Lakers team right now, and he's going to be your outright best guy, you don't have much margin for error. And in this case, the team as a whole did not perform that well outside of LeBron James when it came to him stinking up the bed like that. It just can't happen. You cannot have both of those things happen in one occasion. You can't have a down LeBron James game with a down game from other surrounding teammates of his, because it will not lead to success for this Lakers team, and it has yet to. Honestly, it has yet to. Even when you go back to the game one in the series against the Rockets, okay, down game for LeBron James in terms of scoring, but he had 8 assists in the first quarter, and the shots were falling for other players like Luke Kennard and Marcus Smart. Everything was clicking for them like that. And that's how it's got to be. It's got to be one or the other in those occasions for the Lakers to get the best chance at winning. You cannot have both. And the Thunder, with their defense, forced both to happen. So what came next was honestly to be expected after a while. Then you get into the real meat and potatoes in the fourth quarter because, skip to the good part. They continue to dominate this Lakers team down the stretch. I don't understand. They are in these games and they will just give them away to the other team. Hardenstein himself, you can't make this up. Luke Kennard is literally on the broadcast because they do the interviews before they get back into the game. They're showing it, and he's talking about fixing the communication. These niggas give up an open dunk to Hardenstein in the dunker spot in the very same clip, in the very same time frame. And then he proceeds to go for 6 straight points by himself, just dominating these men like they're fucking little. Come on. They're just getting babied around the entire time. It's ridiculous. And even yeah. We bring AJ Mitchell back into the equation because you would think after a while, okay, we learn our lesson. We try to account for him a little bit more. No, this dude was getting shifty out there. Man is a very nifty player, and they were talking about it as well. They weren't even initially scouting AJ Mitchell when he was at UC Santa Barbara. They were scouting someone else, and they stumbled upon him by accident. And they got access to this man. And he has been nothing but a godsend for this team off the bench, as they put it, a secondary creator off the bench. Because they were talking about this the entire time, and I did find it really interesting. Of course, Dadno wouldn't get into it much. He's not necessarily a scout. But they were saying, hey, even with all these accomplishments we had in this playoff run last year, we did come very close on multiple occasions to being eliminated from the playoffs outright. And if we were to lose either one of those series, essentially we'd look back and ask, is there any way in which we could improve? And so they go out and they unleash him in this offense, and it pays nothing but dividends. Like, there were real chances for him, if he was eligible for it, to be not only a Sixth Man of the Year candidate, in my opinion, but also a Most Improved Player candidate. That was the case for a while, because that's how he was performing. And he has carried that over into the playoffs, where he has just given these teams fits, including the Lakers in this one. Like, he was having his way this entire quarter and would put up 9 to eventually seal the deal for the Thunder. The most revealing thing about it is that, just multiple plays. For one, no one's back on defense before they end up calling a late timeout, as the Thunder have already blown this game out of the water. And then he gets the very deep bounce pass over to Alex Caruso for a transition finish. Then in an earlier sequence, this nigga DeAndre Ayton cannot grab a rebound for shit. And he allows AJ Mitchell to quite literally dance around him, Nash dribble to the fucking sideline, and go back around, go right back to the painted area on the other side and draw a foul on him and one for the scoop layup. And at that point, it's so bad that even Lindsey Harden, the first women's assistant coach in the franchise's history, because she was recently hired, even she can't hide the fucking frustration that you will have in that moment seeing DeAndre Ayton give that shit up. And at a point, I'm like, it's over. Because it had already gotten bad enough. And you have DeAndre Ayton in that moment not even able to get you a fucking rebound at 7 foot tall. And AJ Mitchell's like 6'4"? What the fuck are we doing at a point in time? If you can't even give me that. And it's like, at a point, dude, it's a terrible situation right now. Now, I've been looking at other stuff about it, and somebody had the delusion to say that the Pistons should trade Jalen Duren over to the Lakers. That's not going to fucking happen. Okay? But the Lakers have got to do something about this big man shit. Because it's clear that even with them thinking beforehand that having DeAndre Ayton on a short-term contract could not hurt them, even it got so bad that apparently JJ Redick said in real time, I can't play him. I cannot play one of the only two centers I have on my team because I don't have faith in him to get me a fucking rebound when it counts. They had to go small ball, in fact, for the rest of that game. And that is another reason why the Thunder were able to take this late run and start carving this defense up even more. And yet it was still better for them in that situation because at least Redick understands that these players out on the court are probably going to give them far more effort than DeAndre Ayton ever will on the glass. It's like, what? It's ridiculous. It's incredibly ridiculous. And that's before, all of that is before we even get to another crazy revealing fact in this game. And I guess from that standpoint, to move into the Thunder part of things first. Because, newsflash, they won the game by 23 points. With a 131 to 108 victory. They won this game. Like, we all know how mega fucked the Lakers are. Just think about this for a second. You have the lead at halftime. And you're actively trying to keep yourselves in the ball game, right? You want to win. You don't want to go down 0-3 in this series. And this defense overall, not just the DeAndre thing, not just the LeBron thing, this defense overall is just not that great. And the Thunder, even when they were missing shots for a time, they still got whatever they wanted. Because they got outscored 74-49 by the Thunder. Put up a tear in the second half. And they did all of that. I think they mentioned at a point that they made 24 field goals in the second half overall, the Thunder, right? You want to know how many turnovers the Lakers forced in that same time frame? 1. 24 field goals given up and a single turnover forced against this damn team? Who benefits immensely off of turning other teams over to generate a high percentage of their points. You did not force more than one measly turnover compared to the number of times you have Marcus Smart just doing fuck shit on offense with the ball in his hands. And the amount of errant passes that were being made all over the fucking place. What the fuck? That just cannot happen. And the Thunder proceeded to shoot 56.4% from the field with 44.7% shooting from deep. And oh yeah, I dare you to complain about the way in which foul calls were generated. I dare you. Because yeah, to start off the game, DeAndre Ayton hacked the shit out of Chet Holmgren. Niggas only had 10 free throw attempts in this game, the Thunder did. And they've been putting the numbers all over the place that the Lakers are going to be far more frequent users of the flopping mechanisms and everything like that to get to the free throw line. That's what the metrics and that's what the numbers have already said. They had the balls to go up to the damn refs in the last game, and now you're just that has already aged poorly. Because they got pure buckets on your head. They didn't need it. They didn't have to go to the free throw line. They just walked you down all game long and gave you nothing but pure shot making and elite ball movement in the second half. Look no further than A.J. Mitchell. The man led the team in scoring with 24 points and 10 rebounds along with 4 assists and 3 steals. Stuff in the stat sheet. He had 2 3-pointers and he shot 10 of 17 from the field. Get this shit. He is the first player in the OKC-era of the franchise's history to post 20 points and 10 assists without a single turnover in a playoff game. 0 for him specifically. You wanted to sell all out to keep Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out of the spotlight, and you allow the lad from UC Santa Barbara to be an elite playmaker all throughout the game. This Thunder team, again, is just as deep, if not deeper, than most NBA teams out there. And they are just finding different ways to win, beat the absolute shit out of this Lakers team. You just, at a point, you have to respect that. Regardless of, flopping shit can get out of hand, fine, whatever. They didn't need it in this game to still completely win this without leaving anything in doubt. Was it ever a question? Just answer that. Was it ever a question that they were going to win this game? What did you really expect? Cason Wallace had 16 points in this game and won 6 of 10 shooting with 4 threes. Chet Holmgren had 18 points and didn't even have to make a three-pointer. Didn't even have to get to the free throw line. Isaiah Hartenstein and Isaiah Joe had 12 points, while Lucian Storch also had 10. They didn't even need Jarrett McCain to do much shooting, and he still made the only three-point shot he took. Because again, you're leaving the nigga wide open. Why are you leaving the man wide open when he just gave you 18 points in 18 minutes of the last game? Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the way in which they've been trying to guard him up, because, they had some double teams, and they had Marcus Smart primarily guarding him. He did not necessarily play his most efficient ball. He had 23 points and 9 assists to his credit with just 2 turnovers. So the double teams aren't even really all that effective in that sense. But he did miss a lot of gimme shots and went 7 of 20 from the field. In fact, he made 3 of his 7 three-pointers. And that's definitely something that you don't see every day from him. It's just like, in that sense, man, this Thunder team still became the first since the 2017 Cavs in the playoffs to start 7-0 in the playoff run following their NBA Finals win. And they have not needed Shai to go ballistic in this series yet. It's over. It's done. It's done. It's done. I think this is a playoff thing as well. Moving on to the Lakers now. The 25-point deficit they gave up in the second half is the second worst for them in a second half since moving to Los Angeles. Because they had no physical presence down low whatsoever on either side of the ball. And you could not defend as it was. And they exploited that tenfold. And then some. It's just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Even Hachimura and Kennard combining for eventually 9 of 14 shooting from deep and 39 points was not enough. Just think about that. This is the 14th straight game in which Hachimura has shot greater than 50+% from deep, and it was not enough. If not for him or Kennard in this game, I don't know where the hell this team would have ended up. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, they did their jobs. If you're trying to build this team with shooters around the man, they provided you with the shooting. And nothing else could be given or provided at all. Austin Reeves had 17 points on 5 of 13 shooting with 5 turnovers and 9 assists. Like, that's not good. It's not good. He was able to draw some contact, and that's fair play. But still, it has not even remotely done enough. Marcus Smart and DeAndre Ayton each had 10 points. Like, yeah, I'm just like, bro. Like, LeBron had 19 points as well. Yeah, 7 of 19 shooting. A lot of that coming from that lack of pressure put on by him in the paint. Again, the defense is going to be stronger. I noted at a point, like, yes, the Thunder can out-talent the Lakers at a point. You still have to try. And especially in the defensive end, it just never felt like they did. Putting them in the same boat. Again, in real time, it's like when you're looking at that, when you're seeing that, honestly, you can't even really say that full-out Luka Doncic would really help them in the series. And that's unfortunate. Like, you want to have the best talent out there imaginable. You want to have all your players available. I don't even think it would have helped them all that much. It wouldn't have. When that kind of shit is going down. And that's before you even mention that, they have numbers suggesting that this season, Doncic hasn't even done all that well against the Thunder. They figured him out when he's been on the floor. And you go back to the game in which he got injured, and they were getting fucking smoked in the first half. They gave up more than 80 points. So they had the recipe in a way to handle Doncic if he was a part of this series. It makes things a bit more interesting. I still don't know how much it would have helped this Lakers team. I really don't. And I guess I can reiterate this point later on. Because again, this series is probably a wrap. Chances are I'll probably be talking about this in no short order. But with all this in mind, and with JJ Redick's brain literally breaking in real time, trying to figure out how to help this damn team. One thing that it is always going to come back to, regardless of whatever decision may be looming for LeBron James, they have these rumors just circulating around. Again, I am not blowing a whistle on that until he comes out and says something. Because he has been vague about everything involved in retirement statements and everything like that. He's been very vague about it over years now. I'm not about to sit here and give you that story. I don't think that's going to be the case. All I'm saying is the lesson that should be taken away from this is, man, next time, take the pay cut. I mean, it's been very clear at this point that you could still use a lot more overall talent, in a way, on your roster. Instead of having this man eat up more than $58 million. Oh, yeah, he's a hero because he took the slightest pay cut imaginable. Take the pay cut. Because you will find yourselves in this situation time after time after time again, where you may not have the same kind of death off the bench that you want compared against these other teams who are, again, Thunder, are filled with fucking 2 different starting fives. And the Lakers can't even remotely match that. Because you're limited, because you're cap strapped. So, whatever happens in the offseason, they need to crack down on that shit. Right then and there. Simple. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.